Hari Om. Yes, another story. And this story is also along with the symbolism. I was been very fortunate to have heard from so many different masters the true purpose and significance of the stories that appear in our Puranas. Unfortunately, it is referred to as mythology or myth, but it is not truly just a myth, isn't it? Because it is simply a set of stories that have a very deep message actually hidden in them, and it is only those minds that have been so purified and that are so quiet, that are one with the cosmic, they are able to bring out for us those gems that are sitting there through these stories, that are hidden in these stories. So, to unearth, to bring out such deep messages is not everybody's cup of tea. It takes a lot of, observation, quietening of the mind, removing the I and mind from my mind, and then there is a clarity when we look at something, and then we realize, oh, this is the actual import of what has been told here. So, in similar lines, when we see the Puranas, we realize that after all, Vedavyas ji gave us these Puranas only to make us understand those deep thoughts, those deep messages, those deep truths that are part of the Upanishads, that are part of the Vedas. And that truly is the highest means of knowledge for us. So, with this in mind, when we look at a story, there's a lot more to the story than just the story. And today we will look at the story of the name of this character has been immortalized in the entire world, not just in our country or our religion. No, but the word Tulasi brings up so many thoughts for so many people across the world. For some, it's simply that medicinal herb. For some, it's a divine plant. For some, she was the devotee of Bhagwan. And for those who want to delve a little deeper, she means a lot more. So let us look at all these aspects through the story of Tulasi Devi. We make her a Devi, but that's because she is so divine that whether as a character or what she represents symbolically, either way, it's extremely divine. So, the story of Tulsi is available in so many literature. So many people have said the story before, and for those of you who are familiar, it's great, but for those who are not, here's an outline of the story of Tulsi, after which we will see what the symbolism might be. Before I start the story as such, my humble pranams, prostrations to Pujya Swami Maheshwaranand ji, who is such a repository, a treasure house of symbolic meanings to so many episodes in our epics, in the Puranas. And I have always had a special interest when it comes to the symbolism, and so every time he mentioned the symbolism behind a story or behind a character, I would sit there in awe and think that, oh my God, what a genius Vedavyas ji must have been. So, my pranams, my humble prostrations at the feet of Vedavyas ji and of course Pujya Swami Maheshwaranand ji. Now coming to the story of Tulasi. There was once an asura named Jalandhara. This Jalandhara was born of the ocean, it is said. And so he becomes the brother of Mother Lakshmi, or the brother-in-law of Bhagavan Vishnu. Now, who was this Jalandhara? How did he come to be? Now, once it happened that Indradeva and his guru Brihaspati, they both were walking, and at that time Lord Shiva, who was watching them, got this thought, let me test Indra. And so he came in disguise and walked in front of Indra and Brihaspati, they were walking, right? And when he came in the way, Indra got angry and insulted him and said, "Why are you blocking our path?" With this behavior of Indra, Lord Shiva's anger arose. It increased, it expressed, it came out as fire, as always, right? We have always known Lord Shiva's anger coming out as fire. And immediately, Brihaspati, the Guru, realized and apologized profusely on behalf of Indra, and he begged for forgiveness. And at this time, Lord Shiva relented, but then the anger had already been expressed. Where do we direct it? And so Lord Shiva directed it into the Samudra, into the ocean. Now this energy of anger manifested as a young boy, as a little boy in the ocean, and that's how we say, and this boy is Jalandhara, and so that's how he comes to be known as born of the ocean. And Mother Lakshmi also was born of the ocean during the churning episode, right, in the Kurmavatara of Lord Vishnu's Dashavatara. So this is how Jalandhara came to be. And this boy, now somebody has to bring him up. So it is said that Guru Shukracharya, the Guru of the Daityas, the Guru of the Asuras, took this boy and brought him up under his tutelage. Now Jalandhara grew up and it was time for marriage, and it is said that the Daitya Kalanemi's daughter Vrinda, she was the one who was given in marriage to Jalandhara. Now Vrinda is not an ordinary woman. Vrinda was a great devotee of Lord Vishnu from the time she was a small girl, and she grew up in the thought of Lord Vishnu only in her mind. And such a pious girl was married to Jalandhara, and it is said that she was so devoted to her husband, her pativrata itself was her tapas, and that pativrata tapas shakti was so strong in her that it protected Jalandhara in every way. He was invincible because of her pativratya. Now this being the situation, now he was in the Rakshasa lineage, he was in the Asuric lineage, and he was also brought up by the Guru of the Daityas, of the Asuras, and of course he had the thoughts of attacking and occupying Swargaloka as all other Asuras, and that's exactly what he did. And he drove away Indra from his place and all the Devatas, of course. Now these Devatas, they ran to Bhagwan Vishnu. Now Bhagwan Vishnu said, "Look, I can't really help you in this regard for two reasons. One is he is my brother-in-law. You can't ask me to attack my brother-in-law now. And the other reason is he is protected by my devotee. So how do you expect me to go and attack or go and fight Jalandhara?" Okay, now what are the Devatas supposed to do? Bhagwan Vishnu said, "Go and approach Lord Shiva. I'm sure he will help you in this regard." Now they said, "Yes, Bhagwan," and they left from there. But they were all talking amongst themselves, "Oh my God, do you remember the last time one of us tried to approach Lord Shiva when he was in dhyana? And right now Lord Shiva is sitting in dhyana. How do we approach Lord Shiva at this point of time?" So they decide that it's better not to approach Lord Shiva when he is sitting in deep meditation. What if he opens his third eye? But then there is always a savior, and the savior of the Devatas many times has been this particular interesting character, and I'm sure you would have guessed who it is. He's always there to the rescue, but he's always there to do some mischief also. And yes, you guessed it rightly, Narayana, Narayana, there he arrived. And he said, "Don't worry, oh Devatas, don't worry. I will approach the right people and get this done." So they left it to sage Narada. Now our dear Triloka Sanchari sage Narada, Narayana, Narayana, arrived in Jalandhara's palace. And he started talking about Jalandhara's strength, valor, his power, how invincible he is. Of course, when somebody praises one like that, what happens? Oh, he is all set to hear more and more. And now that Jalandhara was in the grip of sage Narada's words, he turned it towards Brinda and he said, Jalandhara, you are so lucky to have a wife like Vrinda. What a pativrate she is. She is indeed your strength. It is her tapas shakti that is protecting you, O Jalandhara. And he also feels, oh yes, O Narada Muni, of course, there is no doubt about it. I am extremely lucky to have her as my wife. Then sage Narada drops something. He says, but you know, somehow she doesn't match Parvati Devi. Jalandhara's curiosity is now up. Parvati Devi. And then Narada goes on to say, oh, she is one of the most beautiful of wives. Not just in looks, Jalandhara, but in her pativratya. And even for a moment, she doesn't shirk from her duty of serving her husband. And when he needs to be in dhyana, she doesn't disturb him. And somehow, Vrinda, yes, she is definitely a great pativrate, but that but is a very dangerous word. Now, so Jalandhara, his eyes are set on Mother Parvati. Now, how to get to Mother Parvati? He thought, first attack Lord Shiva. So he went to attack Lord Shiva directly. And of course, Lord Shiva, he was sitting in dhyana first of all, and his dhyana was disturbed by Jalandhara. Jalandhara's invitation to fight. And of course, he won't refuse an invitation to fight. This fight began between Jalandhara and Lord Shiva. And it went on and on and on and on. Tapas, Jalandhara's Shakti was because of Vrinda's tapas. And somehow, Lord Shiva's powers also could not match that. Sometimes it happens, when one practices a virtue so deep, when it's become a part of oneself and you're so committed to it, that energy, that Shakti is very, very strong. So, somehow, this Shakti that was with Jalandhara had to be somehow broken. And who was watching all this? Bhagwan Vishnu. Even though he said that I cannot kill Jalandhara like that, he would definitely be a part of the whole thing. He did not tell anybody that, but he knew the secret. He knew all of Jalandhara's Shakti is in Vrinda's tapas. And so, he leaves Vaikuntha and comes to Jalandhara's house. And how does he come? He does not come as Bhagavan Vishnu. He comes as Jalandhara. And Vrinda was in her tapas. It was an ongoing tapas forever. Her pativrate tapas is a 24/7 commitment. And she has been very sincere and honest about it. Now she sees Jalandhara there in front of her. She has no doubt. And she serves him. And that was really not Jalandhara, right? So her pativratya was broken. And with this distraction in her pativratya, with this momentary fall in her pativratya, there Lord Shiva got his moment to destroy Jalandhara. For that moment, Jalandhara lost his power, lost his protection, and Lord Shiva immediately destroyed Jalandhara. And Vrinda suddenly realized what had happened, and she saw that this is not Jalandhara. This is Bhagwan Vishnu. But in her, that moment of my pativratya is gone, she cursed him. She cursed him to become a stone. And Lord Vishnu revealed himself, smiling at her. And she was shivering. She was like, oh my God, Bhagwan, please forgive me. Please forgive me. Bhagwan, for sure, without any doubt, you are indeed my Lord, my ultimate Lord, my supreme Lord. But Bhagwan, in this body, in this Nama and Rupa, I am the wife of Jalandhara and I belong to him and him alone. And so with this Pativratya being destroyed, I cannot exist in this form anymore. And she invokes her yogic powers and burns herself, and she is reduced to ashes. There Jalandhara has been destroyed by Lord Shiva. Now here Bhagwan Vishnu collects the ashes and puts it outside Jalandhara's house, just outside his house, and there it manifests into a beautiful little herb, a beautiful little plant, and this is who we know as Tulasi. Now this Tulasi he blesses to have healing powers of all kinds, and there she is even today with us, helping us heal all our problems. It could be anything to do with the body, it could even be anything to do with the mind, and with devotion, when we accept her in whatever form it may be, she indeed heals us with her divine powers. Now this is the story. Let us see what the symbolism behind this story may be. Because just as a story, yes, it was very beautiful, very interesting, and yes, we have the plant today with us, and here's a story to go with the plant and its medicinal properties. That's one side of it. That's fine as long as we're children. But as we grow up, there are always questions on why. And symbolism is a way to explain something that is very subtle and hard to grasp by the mind, by the intellect. And so when told in the form of a story, and where there is lots of devotion also in the mind, then it becomes that much easier to see it. I wouldn't even say understand, because many times, yes, you can understand only up to a point, but beyond that there is an indescribable way of knowing. And that's what happens when we get involved into the story, into the depth of the story, and we see what the characters stand and what the whole episode means, and the story itself reveals more and more as we sit through it. So we will see what this story has for us. Alright, so now we take the character Jalandhara. Jalandhara, Jalan Dharayati iti Jalandhara. This is what the word Jalandhara means. Now Jalan Dharayati. What is Jalan? In Jalan you will find three syllables: Ja, La and An. They stand for three aspects in creation. Ja, Jayate, created, it is born. Ja, Jayate. La refers to Liyate, it dissolves. Leena, it just gets dissolved into something. So created and creation and dissolution. And then An. What about in between creation and dissolution? There must be a sustenance. And so An is nourishment or sustenance. Anniti. So Ja, La, An. Jalan. Creation, dissolution and sustenance. Jalan Dharayati iti Jalandhara. So Jalandhara represents the Jiva. The Jiva, the Jivatva, the Jivahood is what? It is characterized by being born, being alive or being sustained for a while, and then the being gets dissolved, right? The Jiva as such, the individual. So this is Jalandhara. Vrinda. Vrinda means Samuha or Vrinda. Vrinda means an assemblage, a coming together of many parts. Now when we say Vrinda in this context, what is the assemblage consisting of? Now Vrinda here is the assemblage of the body, the prana, the thoughts, and this whole individuality, the vasanas. This is what makes up the assemblage, and these are the various parts of that assemblage, and all of these are jada, all of these are inert by themselves, they are part of Prakriti. But Vrinda represents the Chetana Shakti, the consciousness that is being expressed through these aspects, through these parts, the assemblage. So Vrinda is that reflected consciousness. To understand this, it is like the sun being the original consciousness. If we take like an example, the sun would be the original consciousness, and then you will find many buckets of water, and in the bucket of water, in the water, you will find many reflected suns. So like that, we take the Supreme Brahman. He is the consciousness. So the absolute consciousness, the original consciousness. Each of us, each individual is like that bucket. The body is the bucket, and the pool of thoughts, the mind is the antahkarana, is the water surface, and it is the reflection of that original, that Supreme Brahman that is shining through this set of instruments in the body, whether it's the body or the thoughts or the prana. It is basically the same Supreme Consciousness which is reflecting through these instruments. Now, so Vrinda represents the Chetana Shakti or the reflected consciousness, and we must remember that this reflected consciousness we are able to know, able to experience through this assemblage of the body, the mind, the prana and the vasanas, the whole setup. Now, when Jalandhara was manifested in that ocean and he came out as a boy, it is Shukracharya ji who took him. And Shukracharya ji represents the guru of the Daityas. Daityas are the Asuri Vritti. Now, when the Jiva is nourished by Asuri Vritti, what do you expect the Jiva to be? The Jiva would also develop Asuri tendencies only. And that's how Jalandhara became an Asura. And he would also want to be powerful, want to attack everything and make it his own. And that's how he ends up attacking Swargaloka, right? So here also the Daivi Vrittis now are suppressed. The Daivi Vrittis are attacked. Now, where is this Jiva getting all the strength from? That strength is coming from Vrinda, the reflected consciousness, the Chetana power, the Chetana Shakti, and the Chetana Shakti being manifested through the various instruments. That is what the Jiva uses, right? So, the assemblage of the Upadhis or the instruments along with that reflected consciousness, they are all committed to the Jiva. That's what is Vrinda being a Pativrate and Jalandhara being her lord. And so, when our reflected consciousness is committed to us, committed meaning what? It is always available. Now, Vrinda's Shakti is always with Jalandhara, whether he is doing good actions or bad actions. So, similarly, in us, that reflected consciousness, that Chetana Shakti is with us. What we choose to do with this Shakti is ours, our decision. But that reflected consciousness is what gives us the energy, the strength. So, that is the energy of the Jiva, that is the power of the Jiva, the strength of the Jiva. So, now with this background, when we understand that the noble virtues or the Daivi Sampat in us has been attacked, now what does the where do the Daivi Sampat go? What happens? Do they just remain dull? No, usually in everybody it cannot be that we have only Asuri tendencies in us. We have Daivi tendencies also, we have good thoughts also in us. Now one of those good thoughts, takes that leadership, and that's what we will call Indra, and they approach Bhagwan because he is the source. The Daivi Sampat knows that Bhagwan, that Ishvara is the protection, and when they go there, well, that Ishvara represented as Bhagwan Vishnu now says that, look, Mother Lakshmi, who is my power, with whose power I sustain and protect, she is Jalandhara's sister. That means this Jiva is being protected, and also I am that protector. And how do I protect it? I protect through these Upadhis only for you, for the Jiva, which is Vrinda. So, Jalandhara is protected by my devotee only, means what? That set of instruments that are there, that have also been provided by Bhagwan Vishnu only in order to protect the Jiva. in order to give strength to the jiva. Now the jiva has to put his own efforts, purushartha, and take his journey. That's one part. But Lord Vishnu's purpose is to give that strength to the jiva. So he says, at this point of time, I cannot do anything about it. And then when the noble vrittis, when the Daivi vrittis want to directly approach Lord Shiva. Now what does Lord Shiva represent? Lord Shiva represents the Supreme Brahman, the highest here. So how do you directly get to the highest? It's just not possible. There is always that fear, because to approach the highest means to drop who one is. And nobody has that courage so easily. And so the Daivi vrittis shy away from approaching Lord Shiva directly or approaching the Supreme Brahman directly. Now, in the meantime, there is one more samskara in us, which is represented by sage Narada. Now, sage Narada, very interesting. Naram dadati iti Naradaha. Naram moksham. So, he is the one that takes people towards liberation. So, that thought in us, that samskara that is sitting in us, that noble thought which propels us towards Brahma Vidya, that is the Narada thought in us. And now that Narada thought approaches the jiva and reveals to the jiva that, you know, you are very powerful, dear jiva, but do you know about the Shakti that Lord Shiva has? Do you know the power of Brahma Vidya, the Shakti of Brahma Vidya? And there the jiva now is full of curiosity and that urge to know and possess Brahma Vidya. And thus, but then the jiva doesn't know directly how to get that Brahma Vidya Shakti. So he goes directly towards Brahma Vidya, and that's what is Jalandhara trying to attack Lord Shiva. Oh, but that's not going to be possible. Now that struggle goes on, that is the adhyatmic churning, that gharshane, that struggle that happens in a jiva who has embarked upon wanting to know the Supreme. The thing is, he wants the Shakti, and he doesn't care so much about the Supreme Brahman, because the jiva has always been used to having a Shakti. So with this thought, when the jiva pursues the adhyatmic struggle, it is a struggle. It's going to be a struggle for a while. And why is it a struggle? Why is he not able to come out? Because that reflected consciousness, that Shakti that is protecting him, that Shakti is something that he has to overcome. Because right now, that reflected consciousness, that Shakti he is using, now that has to be broken somewhere. Because that Shakti, because Jalandhara has been with Asuric tendencies, the jiva has gone towards Asuric tendencies, which means he was always into bhoga, he's always looking outwards. But meeting Lord Shiva and that struggle is a struggle that's inwards. And so he is not yet ready to drop that strength that takes him outwards, and he is supposed to direct it inwards. That doesn't come so easily. And so that struggle happens, and that is what is that long battle between Jalandhara and Lord Shiva. But there is Lord Vishnu thought also in us. Bhagwan Vishnu is our protector. He is the one who takes us towards moksha. He is the one who grants us moksha at the end of it. Now, when he is there, why worry? He will come and sort it out for us, and that's what he does. How he does need not be questioned. All it takes is our Shraddha that he will take care. And Bhagwan Vishnu comes. That thought in our mind arises. And when Lord Vishnu thought comes, sometimes it's a confusing thought. So he comes as Jalandhara only. It comes in the form of a jiva only. As a materialistic thought only maybe. That is what is referred to in the Shastras as Vishayakara Vritti. He comes as though, I'm offering you a bhoga on the outside. But what is he doing? Bhagwan is actually turning us inwards. That is what he did with Vrinda. Instead of she being committed towards Jalandhara, he made her turn towards himself. Vishayakara Vritti becomes Vaishnavakara Vritti. So now the Jiva, that is Jalandhara, who was fighting with Lord Shiva, loses that ability, because now the reflected consciousness represented by Vrinda, after all, even though it is reflected consciousness, in essence what is it? It is consciousness only. Now light, if it's reflected off a surface, it is still light only, isn't it? Just because it hit the surface and got reflected, we called it reflected light. Similarly here also, reflected consciousness ultimately is consciousness only. Now this consciousness has been cut off from the outer and turned inwards. And now that Jalandhara, who was an extrovert, who was always into bhoga, and with that thought, in his ignorance, he tried to get just the Shakti and try to separate the Shakti from the Supreme. Now that was obviously not going to happen. That is not possible at all. And that he realizes once this connection is cut off, once the reflected consciousness is not available for the outer pursuits anymore. Why? Because these thoughts, the Narada thought, Lord Vishnu thought, have all been powerful, because the noble thoughts in us simply surrendered to the cosmic force, simply surrendered to Ishvara, to Lord Vishnu. And with this occurring, with Jalandhara being destroyed, with that extroverted aspect of the Jiva being destroyed, what is left now? So it's simply the inward journey. Once the extroverted Jalandhara is destroyed, now the Jiva is in the grip of Lord Shiva, in the grip of Adhyatmic knowledge. And it is that Brahma Vidya, it is that Adhyatmic knowledge which is the strength of the Jiva now. And slowly, of course, one attains liberation. Now the Chetana Shakti, because the individual is still alive, as long as Prarabdha is there, the individual is going to be there, seen as a separate individual. And yet the individuality has been removed, it's all gone. But still the Prarabdha that has begun has to end. So how does that Jiva spend the rest of that life? So there he is as Tulasi. It is said that Tulasi has healing powers. When we take in a leaf of Tulsi, when we pray to Tulsi, this is for the body and the mind. But she is also Bhavaroga Nivarini, because she represents Brahma Vidya. Brahma Vidya is the one that removes that disease of samsara, that disease of sorrow, that disease of birth and death cycle. Now, so in all levels, Tulsi is the healing Shakti for us. And now this Jiva is now referred to as the Jnani, as the Jivan Mukta, and now this Jivan Mukta is there as a guide for the others, the other Jalandharas who are still on their journey. They also have to meet Sage Narada, they also have to have the grace of Vrinda and Bhagwan Vishnu, and the same story continues for each individual, each Jiva. And thus this Jiva, whose Jalandhara has been destroyed, who is now available to guide and heal other Jivas from this Bhava Roga. And this is the beautiful significance of this story of Tulasi and Jalandhara. There are so many such stories that are there only to help us embark and go on this journey of our spiritual return to who I truly am. I hope you all enjoyed the story as well as the symbolism aspect of it, and may we all take inspiration from such stories and continue with our journey. Maybe little steps, that's fine, but let us start and take those baby steps. We will falter, we will fall. Jalandhara fell, we are also none other than Jalandhara alone. So it's all right. We have to have the Shraddha that Sage Narada will come, that Narayana is something that will protect us, and Lord Narayana himself will definitely be with us in our journey and take us towards liberation. And there Whether we meet Lord Shiva, Lord Vishnu, sage Narada, it's immaterial. It is a place of no nama and rupa. It's a place of bliss. It's not even a place, it's just pure bliss. My gratitude, heartfelt, sincere gratitude to the entire Guru Parampara, and a special one to Pujya Swami Maheshwaranandji for bringing out these symbolic aspects of the stories and giving it to people like us. Maybe also spread the symbolic message to everyone so we understand the true import of the Puranas and rise above the baser thoughts in ourselves. Om Shri Sadgurave Namaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Hari Om, and thank you all for your patient listening.